Peace. What's good? How y'all doing? I have to take a breath before I even get started. I don't mean to start off with a sigh. That wasn't supposed to come out like that, but peace and love. What's good? How y'all doing? Today is Monday. I think what the sigh was is when I looked at the camera just to double check the date. Um, the whole sort of the frequency of 9/11 came over me. And that was a lot to deal with, and I think that the ramifications and the remnants of the events that took place at that time are still unfolding and are directly connected to what's happening in the world today. So that was the reason for my pause. Pardon me. I normally prefer to start with more, sort of vibrant, at least until I get into the nitty gritty of the subject. I also have a couple of announcements real quick. Number one, I added about, I think, 25 people into the chat conversation that we have in the membership cipher. I didn't realize, or I forgot, I should say, that every time I add a new member, that I also have to add them to those specific, group events or conversations. So pardon me for that. So if you got a notification for that and you go on that page, you'll see a continuum of conversations that have been had, including a poll that I put up the other day asking about the time frame to do a once a month group meditation last Sunday of the month. And so if you guys could take a second and fill that out. We also had our first book club meeting, which was wonderful. I had a very good time. And our next meeting is October 7th. You can look in that group chat page to get more information about that. I will be announcing a challenge for a fast this coming weekend. I am about to be much more persistent and consistent with my own personal fasting, meaning every week on Wednesday, do a 1 day fast. But then also at the beginning of the month, starting next month, I'm going to be doing the 3 day fast, whatever that first Thursday through Sunday, whatever that date falls when the new month comes. I will be focusing on doing the 3 month fast. And I think it is very critical for all of us to start putting or implementing fasting. The nerd gets the best of me sometimes. The nerd in me gets the best of me sometimes, but really starting to be conscientious and intentional about fasting. So before I get into my story, let me make sure I got all of my announcements together. Okay, yes. I wrote notes in my little notebook. This is like one of those little, small pocketbook notebooks that you keep in class so that you can take notes from your professor. Not the little ones, not the pocket size ones, but maybe the size of a uh not the small, it's bigger than the pocket size one, but twice the size of that. So I intentionally used my small notebook because I know I'm reminding myself that I want to do a short video. I don't want to hold you guys for too long. And I should be able to just, come in and have a quick conversation. Not I should, I can, and I'm going to, because it's just a couple of things that I wanted to talk about off the top of my head and from the spirit, from the heart, some downloads that I have been getting over the last couple of days. I know you guys, through headline news for sure. Hopefully everybody has watched the most recent episode or will this week. But there is a lot of things happening on our planet, and it can at times be very, very overwhelming. I mean, the Morocco earthquake, and the way the continuity of these mass traumatic experiences, quote unquote, natural, unnatural disasters, the magnitude that they're happening and the consistency that they're happening now, to a person that's paying attention. Most of the people on our planet are not paying attention. And not that I even think that you have to pay attention to the extent that I do. But I do think it is, I've been using this term spiritual blind spot. A lot of people in the spiritual and metaphysics communities, they live by this mantra, or at least in word. They live by this mantra, at least in word. What you focus on expands, and that is true. We talk about consciousness creating reality, and so where your attention goes, so too does creation, so to speak. But there's also a flip side of that, where if there is a very evil or wicked agenda that's happening in the background of your life and the people around you and the society you live in, there's a wicked, evil agenda happening in the background, and you're not paying attention because you don't know. Most people don't know this very small percentage of people on this planet that have been consistently focused in trying to understand this web of evil over the last, I'm going to date myself to 20 years, maybe 25, just because Steve Coakley was very instrumental in my initial understanding of a lot of this stuff. And then also I was very heavily invested in history, in particular between African and European cultures. So all of it's relative, to be honest. But to see the magnitude, and it's clear that a lot of people are desensitized to life. I told you guys, there's a whole conversation happening on my Instagram page, and I haven't even had the energy to go back and address it. I've responded a couple of times, but if I'm not online for 2 or 3 days, I can go back to a post and see it's taking a life of its own. But I did read some of these comments where people were talking about not having any empathy or not caring about what's happening in Hawaii because those aren't our people and those people never stick up for our people, et cetera, et cetera. And then we see the situation in Morocco now, where we have some 2,000 odd, and plus that number is increasing probably by the minute. Isn't it ironic that they had a death toll for Morocco the day after the earthquake, and they still don't have a final tally in Hawaii? That's interesting. Um, so you have all this mass chaos, mass destruction, right? And you know what's so crazy, y'all? Both of these locations are in my book. And I'm not even, I can't even make that about me because what, huh? But I'm just saying it's surreal to me. I've told you guys that this has been a very transcendental, if that's the right word, experience, because I've been walking in multiple timelines while creating this book. The historic ancient timelines, and then the present timeline, and then the future timeline, in terms of trying to get ahead of and have an understanding of and create a response to, or a frequency that will cancel out said agendas, etc. I've really been occupying these three dimensions in my consciousness. It's really surreal. So then, first Hawaii and the whole Lahaina, and the importance of that particular area and the original ancient Hawaiian people, which I discuss in the book, and then Morocco, which was founded by an African man, Yusuf ibn, his last name escapes me. Don't quote me on that, and don't shame me for that either, please. When you read the Morocco, when you read there's a whole page on Morocco and the brother who founded Morocco. But when you read the chapter on the Moors in Spain, and you see how all of the names are like super, super similar. There's like 50 different names, and all of them have an Ibn in the middle, and then most of them are like Yusuf something, or Muhammad Ibn something, or something Ibn Muhammad, right? So all of the names are very similar. So please pardon my, um, and I kind of know it, but I don't want to mess it up. So I'll leave it to the book. But here we have two places in the world that have very strong energetic ties in terms of ancient kingdoms that are being wiped out. by the synthetic algorithm. And I think we have enough of a backdrop to understand what I mean by the synthetic algorithm going into the conversation we've been having about the synthetic versus or the synthetic war on organic life. And to that fact, I talked in Headline News episode 39 about them trying to bring back lockdowns, about them slowly teetering towards mask mandates, government officials, health officials, et cetera, starting to slowly tip back towards that as we slowly tip back towards the winter. Is you can look at the plan for winter, spring, summer, and fall. There's like a whole plan for every season in terms of how you get the people to scramble or to move or to comply. A big part of the year is sports, which I talked about that in Headline News episode 39 as well. How much of the sports industry, and I forgot, I didn't even put tennis in there. There was a couple of sports that weren't even on that list when I thought about it. But how much of the their ability to sort of direct people's attention away from their agenda and onto other things, so they're not paying attention to the fact that they are frogs in water that feels great when they first enter, but it's slowly starting to get warmer and warmer. So I saw a video, a couple of videos, a couple of people sent this to me where this gentleman was talking about Marburg's disease. I hope I'm saying it right because I didn't write the actual spelling down in my notes. I've heard about this over the past couple of years in a lot of different the people that were going in and looking at the original AIDS virus, the whole autoimmune uh, um, aspects of that quote unquote virus. All of these things are tied, but during that timeline, Marburg's disease again was something that was sort of being underreported, but that started to there started to be an uptick. I don't want to get into the semantics of that because I'll go left, but basically alluding to the fact, and I probably said this in video, I definitely said this to my homegirl earlier today because we talked, and it was just me sort of expressing the burden of knowing certain things intuitively, knowing certain things by direction of the research and the analysis and the observation that I've been doing, and probably not purely, but continuously through the guidance of the creator. It's very burdensome when I find out things that I knew maybe couldn't 100% prove or were just too far fetched for the average person to even, things I don't even want to talk about here, right? And so when I hear those things being revealed through these different mediums, it's a lot. And so these videos, this particular gentleman, I can share some of this content on the site, but I'm trying to, sort of stay balanced with the type of content. And if I do talk about those things, maybe I'll throw it in headline news. So it's not just you looking at what, these people are saying about it. It's also me sort of giving my perspective to try to balance it out and make it make sense. Especially or at least from a spiritual vantage point. But this gentleman was talking about this new agenda, alleged agenda for this next round of this pandemic, PLAN, um, that they're going to use the cell towers to beam pulses for 1 minute, and that those pulses are going to have an impact on the people who have taken the shot. And I won't say he said that, but I'm gonna I'd like to go a step further, right? Because that's my responsibility. That I don't want to just be throwing things out there that just sound super incredulous, even though this actually didn't sound incredulous to me at all. I was like, yeah, unfortunately, very unfortunately, I've kind of known this for some time now, and I probably have even said it in videos, to be honest. So it's things I try not to say, but then sometimes when I'm being a little bit more forthright, I say it. I think I may have said it in a video or two. But so he's talking about the people who've taken the shot. I'm gonna talk about the people who are striving and seeking to be in alignment and seeking to live at their highest and best potential, and that are, because I believe in atonement, I believe in redemption. um, I believe that the physical body and the spiritual bodies and the mind and the power of the mind, um, and the backing of source energy that's making this whole thing run, can overcome anything. Okay. And I think that, because it's now at this point it's like, okay, just the people in the shot, and I think it's making a lot of people who haven't taken the shot get really, really lazy and complacent. And so, yes, it's about whether or not you have that poison in your body, which comes by that way, but then also via the PCR tests, which I just talked about in Headline News episode 39, in which I'm going to post another video about that specifically, because that was the Trojan horse from the beginning. And I don't want to, make anybody afraid, especially if you just joined the membership channel, right? And here she goes. Um, but I would gather that if you know of my content, then at least some of this is not. This shouldn't be a shock to your system. If you know anything about me, my first book was about things that can get me canceled at every turn at this point. And I got another strike on my YouTube channel. I posted a 1 minute clip for the on-demand video of Headline News episode 39. I posted a 1 minute clip in my story on YouTube, and I accidentally slipped up and said COVID hoax. And I think I even said COVID C19 and then hoax. But they gave me a strike for that. So the censorship train is starting to move again. And I'm very thankful and very happy that now this group has been established for enough time where, should anything happen where my social media platforms get canceled, should anything happen where social media turns into what it is now in Canada, what it is now in Australia, which is dealing with extreme levels not only of censorship but of dictating and cultivating exactly and only what they want the people to see and hear. That's dangerous and that's scary. So we have a platform here that does everything that all of those platforms does. And I'm changing some things around in terms of using Zoom, but that's to come. But the point is, where am I going? Let me come back to the center. So we need to be, the title is Magnetism and where am I at on time? Time is always the issue. It's 18 minutes. Okay. It's September 11th. Magnetism and fine tuning the spirit. I use fine tuning the spirit because I just needed to, come up with a title, but really I want to emphasize fine tuning the spiritual bodies, fine tuning the mind, fine tuning the emotional bodies, and fine tuning our physical bodies for sure. We have to be very, very, very on top of our game with how we're eating and the things that we're putting in our bodies right now. I don't think we should, anyone should, be forced to not eat meat or to eat any particular type of way. But I think that if you're paying attention to what's happening in terms of the agricultural industries, in terms of the Bill Gates agenda, in terms of the vaccination of the livestock all across the country, it's already on record that they've done it. I think that it would be in our best interest to either limit the amount of, lessen or limit the amount of meat that we intake, but then also dairy products, dairy byproducts. and just becoming light in our affairs, as I have said continuously. And so the way that we eat is one of those ways to become light in our affairs, and then becoming light in our mind and in our emotional bodies, et cetera, et cetera. So what made me come up with this subject? I was driving down Sunset Boulevard. I'm right here in the middle of everything, in a very well-to-do, wealthy area of Los Angeles. And it's very physically beautiful, very, physically tantalizing. Obviously, the weather complements that. And so it is everything that you think that it would be in terms of just the beauty of it, right? But then the frequency of the people doesn't match. I don't even want to say, I want to use the word elaborate, but that's not the right word. There's something very dull about the frequency and the energetic resonance of the people in this environment. That's not even the point that I wanted to make. That's just something that just popped into my head. The thing that I was thinking about is, all the while I'm moving around in this area, I always see these mostly white kids, every now and then, something other, Black included, flying down Sunset Boulevard, flying, it is in somewhere in this vicinity, drop top Porsche, Range Rover, tricked out pink chrome Tesla, right? Just, but the point that I'm making of this is because, or the reason that I'm bringing this up is because I noticed that they have a reckless abandon sort of. If I want to drive 50 miles an hour in a 20 zone, yeah, I'll do what I want to do. It's that type of vibe, right? And it's we're in the area for that, right? So you kind of expect it, but you see it all the time. And so I just noticed it, and I kind of chuckled to myself, like, yeah, they have supreme confidence that if they get pulled over, or if there's an accident, or if there is some sort of problem in between them being from in the safety of their home to whatever the situation is, that their parents or their money or their influence or their names are going to quickly resolve and dissolve any problems. Now, this is me on the outside looking in, right? I'm sciencing it up just based off human observations. It's what I do. But it's also what we kind of know about this culture anyway, right? The entitlement. But the point is, the supreme and extreme confidence and knowledge and conviction and a surety that they're not going to be facing any harm. There's not really going to be any significant consequences due to power, parents, money, etc. Right? So I had already had the thought. Once I have a thought in my head, it like, it bakes and metastasizes, and then it'll turn into something else. And so I was thinking on that, and then I thought to myself, we need to have that sort of confidence and a surety in the who, what, when, where, why, how, et cetera, depends on, which is dependent upon you, your who, what, when, where, why, and how. When it comes to supreme confidence and a surety, depends on you. In my Father's house there are many mansions, right? So the idea of Christ consciousness, the idea of climbing the ladder of ourselves, as I discussed in a couple of videos back, starting from the base or the lower nature of self, and then climbing through the trials and trajectories of your life experiences to become your highest and best potential, hopefully. That's why we're here, right? And then we do it collectively, and then it compounds to do the same thing for the collective consciousness, right? That makes sense to me. That's a spiritual mathematic equation. So I think I'm gonna write if I write a math textbook, which is, on the table at this point, I think I would probably add some things like that in to sort of up the ante on how our children learn math. But let me stay on subject. So, supreme confidence and assurity. So when I say in the who, what, when, where, why, how, let me solidify that. Let me break that down. I was only planning on talking for 30 minutes. Give me 40. Hopefully, not hopefully. I'll be done in 40 minutes for sure. I know I'm at 20 minutes now. Um, where do you have supreme confidence and assurity in your life right now? That's a question for you to discover and for you to ask and for you to answer. If I were to answer this question, I would say without a doubt in my book, Ancient People, the frequency and the vibration and the intention and the love that I have connected to this book, which has pretty much driven me to the bounds, to the depths of idiotic perfection, not for me, for the book, as close as I could possibly get teetering on the line of insanity. Um, but it's supreme confidence and assurity in that book. Yes, 100%. Supreme confidence and assurity in terms of where I stand in my consciousness and awareness right now, the choices that have been presented to all of humanity over the last 3 years in particular, my whole life really, but 3 years in particular, and how I have stood up to the challenge. And my son has also stood up to the challenge in his own regard. And so, and at the same time, educated and assisted a very large subset of humanity in my own small way. Yeah, I can say for sure that I have supreme confidence and assurity. I know what team I'm playing for. I know which side I'm on when it comes to the light and the darkness, and I don't need the spiritual community to come through and say, "Oh, it's all God." Yeah, but the universe arcs towards love, right? Towards positivity, right? Righteous people, if you see someone suffering or being done wrong and you can intervene or assist the matter in any way, you will. If you see a child being harmed by a polite and you're anywhere in the vicinity, if you are a righteous man or a righteous woman, you're going to do something to intervene, right? No, no, I thought you said God was there. God is light and yeah, but we came here to decide. We came here to cultivate one aspect of that within ourselves and master the other. Really master both, but just to differentiate the in terms of the lightness and the darkness, the higher self and the lower self. We didn't come here to magnify the lower self. Definitely came to magnify the higher self. You see the difference? Faith is most notably referenced for belief and in a religious connotation, but the truest essence of the word faith in from a scriptural perspective, but then in terms of what that entails, we talk about fine tuning the spirit, fine tuning the mind, fine tuning the emotional body, fine tuning the spiritual bodies, fine tuning the physical body. I hope you're fine tuning your physical body right now. Everybody listening to my voice, it's critical. It's not the time to be overweight. It's not the time to not be able to get up a flight of stairs quickly or down or et cetera, et cetera. We need to be able to be quick on our toes, moving, alert, and able to go with the flow and create the flow in whatever particular manner that those things present themselves. So the concept of faith in terms of a spiritual and metaphysics perspective is about knowing, because if we look at this from a quantum perspective, or the universe is a mental universe, or we live in a holographic reality. So now we're talking about deciding what it is that we want and who we want to become, and then projecting that onto the screen of reality of consciousness, and then getting in alignment with the vision, the desire, the goals, the aspirations, and then not doubting it, and then knowing for sure, and then staying committed, and then being loyal to the concept, and then never speaking negatively against it, and then connecting the heart energy and the heart chakra to the goal, to the vision, to the desire, so you can feel it. You feel love when it's being discussed. You feel enthusiastic and inspired and invigorated when you think about it or him or her or that trip or that experience or that win or that success or that business or that personal goal or legacy or that physical goal or legacy or some championship or some license or some creation or some invention or some house you want to build with your bare hands or buy on the Pacific coast, or family you desire, or art piece or poetry, etc., etc. You get my drift. You can't believe it. You can't believe that it's coming. You have to know that it's already there. But we've been indoctrinated and educated in an environment that hope, wishing on a star. You never had to wish. You never actually had to wish on a star. You never had to actually make a wish and then blow out the candles. I mean, it's fun for the celebration. It looks good. Everybody claps and cheers and you blow out the candle. It's a wonderful thing. And if you actually believe, as most children who are pure in the essence of their being, they believe the whole blowing out the candles, making a wish. They don't have any reason to not believe it. And so usually what they ask for, they get. Do you get what you ask for? Is the universe responding to your desires? In order to live with that level of supreme confidence and surety, our frequencies, our mindsets have to be consistently fine-tuned, consistently, every day even. This is the whole concept of Jesus and Judas, dimensions of consciousness. Which one will you serve today? You want to be Asar, Aset, or Heru, or Set. Those are 4 different dimensions of consciousness. Usually we just base it on we just compare and contrast the brothers, right? The concept of Set being Satan and the concept of Asar being the righteous one, the righteous brother. Asar or Set? I think it's Asar. Having It's one of them. I used to get the names confused because you think that the woman is, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Asar. If it's not, you guys correct me. But then there's Heru, who eventually was sort of morphed into Jesus. And then there was the woman who really was the if anybody we should be looking at with shock and awe. I mean, she went and searched the earth and found her man's dismembered body and put it back together, and then had sex with his body to produce a child, a dismembered no longer living physical body. Now, of course, this is mythology, but there's deep symbolism in all of this. These are not to be thought of as this actually happened as a physical expression. And in the same in the same concept of today, or I shouldn't say that. Let me clean that up. That didn't come out right. Dimensions of consciousness. So, in order to operate and embody that level of supreme confidence and assurity, you have to be living with purpose. It's a fact. I'm living with purpose. My purpose keeps me up at night. Sometimes I'm like, damn, I wrote 7 books. And then sometimes I'm like, I could have had 15 books written by now. I really have those moments. Ancient people could have easily been 3 different books. But and so instead of me ridiculing myself, it's like, no, I'm living with purpose. I got things to say. I have things that I want to experience. I have major things that I want to experience in this lifetime. Where in your life right now are you embodying supreme confidence and assurity? I'd like to know. You develop a prosperity consciousness by changing your mind and replacing ideas of lack with ideas of abundance. Let me read from the book. I wrote this down in my handwriting, but I can't read my handwriting. I started out so neat on the other page and then it just went left. You develop a prosperity consciousness by changing your mind, by replacing ideas of lack with ideas of abundance. Where are you having ideas of lack right now? Let's deal with it. I know where my urgency, and I'm towing the line of urgency, and sometimes it's that fear frequency creeps in. What if I don't have enough time? What if this doesn't happen? What if that doesn't happen? What if they do this? What if this happens? What if that happens? There's a lot of what ifs. So I know where I have lack-based ideas that creep up on me that I have to deal with. And I know how to pivot from them and I know how to come back to the center because I have a very strong frequency or magnetism headed in the direction that I want to go to. So I have enough momentum where I can walk myself back from that lack-based consciousness at most times, but sometimes, oh, that's why I said in these last couple of weeks, I be having, I have these energetic highs. I won't say I have energetic highs. I'm mostly on an energetic high consistently now. But I have a very large bandwidth for knowledge and information, but sometimes it's a lot. The whole Marlboro thing and the timeline that they're saying that this is supposed to happen, and the idea and the notions of lockdowns and all that stuff is just, it's a lot. Particularly because my son, and so being a mother and supposed to be in LA. My plan is to be here until the end of September. It's probably going to be until November now because I do want to schedule my events here before I leave. But I'm ready to go. And I don't know where I want to go to next. Part of that is very exciting. If we weren't, if Satan wasn't breathing down our backs, it would be pure excitement because I'm a wild child at heart. I will hit the road and figure out the details on my way. But we have a big ass elephant in the room. So I'm trying to be very consistent, more consistent than anything by way of this is what I want, this is what I desire. And regardless to whom or what, there goes those words again. It will be made manifest. So my question that I'm always exploring when I'm listening to and observing myself, and the question that I would like to pose to you, all of you beautiful souls with these various degrees of success and information and background and experience and life experience, where if anything, what points in your life are you battling with or observing lack-based consciousness? I think the question first is important. I have after you figure that out, I have a next step after that. But if I give you that, you'll try to skip to the next part of it instead of just doing the first part first. And if you're listening and you're a former client of mine, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. But that's the point that I wanted to make about that. And then the second thing is I want to read this passage that I shared in my story a couple of days ago. Actually, it's still, I think it's probably down by now, but because this comment it gave me a lot of other thoughts. Let me see where I'm at on time. I'm already there at 40 minutes. See, this is what I'm saying. I don't know. I just hope I hope I'm not being repetitive. That's why I write notes. That's why I don't want to be wasting your time. I know I'm not wasting your time. This is just you guys. I'm very I just have certain ways that I try to do things, but whatever. As long as I'm not repeating myself, and the information is and the perspective is fresh, then whatever. Um, it's 40 minutes. It feels like it's been like three. So I'm gonna read this other passage, and I'm gonna let you guys go. Just a few things about this, because this was deep. It's a post from a page that I follow called Learning Cosmic Sexuality. And the passage is about sexual energy per se. And I want to talk about that, but then hone in on a broader context of that. It says, if you want to see if someone is truly serious about their own commitment to spiritual elevation and growth, stop engaging with them sexually, not as a form of control or punishment, but to stop feeding them your own sacred living energy and watch to see if they can sustain on their own, or if your energy is giving them a false sense of magnetism and alignment. I had to drink some water on that. And when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about different, sort of pop culture. I want to say oxymoron, but that's not the word. This whole notion of sexual liberation and sexual control and the way that it's sort of turned and expressed in this society, right? And from the person trying to do the controlling, or the person sort of living through this false sense of sexual liberation and really objectifying. Most women that are talking that shit are really objectifying themselves, and they're talking it to an audience of men that only know how to engage and interact with women when they're being objectified, and so they're never going to listen to you coming with a totally oxymoronic, appropriate there. You trying to get respect based off of sort of promoting all of the things that women are doing that's making them not respect them. That's what feminism does. You standing up for Cardi B and for women's rights and making Megan Thee Stallion the face of your operation, or whoever, Kim Kardashian, etc. And all of those women have a hand in the dysfunction, in the caricature of what womanhood it has become. If you don't think that men are developing a disdain from going online and seeing fake asses clapping in the camera all the time, consistently, even if they don't follow that type of content, yeah, it's a thing. To the men who still have brain cells left, and to the ones who don't, well, does it really matter? So this is critical for multiple reasons. Number one, most people have never really been sexually disciplined or focused on being sexually disciplined. And I find that fascinating. Not because my intention was ever like, yes, I'm going to be sexually disciplined. I was just always like, it takes a lot for you to have access to my body. That's not just something that, I see you and you look good, you fine, let's have at it. And people really be out here living like that. It's a big part of the LGBTQ culture and community, especially when it comes to the men. So how could they then be producing the high vibration, high quality human beings that are adding to the collective consciousness? Not saying that they're not, but in what capacity? What is funny to me now, when I was in Atlanta, it was really a trip to me to be see black men that didn't like acknowledge me. I'm used to wherever I've been in the world, whether it's in California, when I always went to go visit down south, my grandparents. I lived in Oklahoma. Even when I used to travel to Atlanta and to the East Coast when I was younger, like I've always been. You know what I'm saying? It's a greet, it's a nod, it's a smile, it's a how you doing, it's a and I ain't just talking about I'm not men that are interested in me, old men, elders, boys, right? It's the male female dichotomy as it should be. Matter of fact, we shouldn't even in our minds go. I had to explain that because I know how we think in this reality. We shouldn't even naturally go to it having to be something devious or, you trying to get something from me, but it is where we naturally go. That's why I even had to say that. So now I went go to Atlanta later when I moved there and I would see brothers all the time. And, not all, because Atlanta has a great, you know, other than population of men that are men, right? But just being in the space of like, homosexual men that like don't even look at you, don't even acknowledge you, don't even greet you or hold the door for you, or it's going to have cataclysmic consequences. Now I'm being dramatic with the word because it's a very dramatic circumstance. Cataclysmic circumstances on the male female dichotomy in the era of moving forward with the transhumanist agenda. So there's a lot of things happening in the backdrop, but let me get back on point. Um, to stop feeding them your own sacred living energy. So, yes, your sexual energy is 1000% sacred living energy, period, point blank. So is your mental energy. So is your emotional energy. So is your physical energy. Physical meaning not just the act of sex, but, the intimacy factor, whether or not you hug or kiss this person, how you feel when they're in your physical vicinity versus when they're not. Do they come around and you feel heavy and grief stricken or sad or frustrated and stressed out, or do you feel light and clear? Stop feeding them your own sacred living energy and watch to see if they can sustain on their own, or if your energy is giving them a false sense of magnetism and alignment. So this pertains to the strong friends, the strong family members, the ones that everybody know is going to always be okay no matter what, the ones that everybody calls and dumps their problems on, or wants guidance or wants assistance or wants et cetera, and you do and you give because it's who you are. We shall be called the children of God. And everybody just sort of forsakes the fact that they're constantly drawing from and pulling on your energy with no reciprocity. And how could they reciprocate? Because in order for them to pour back into you, the frequency has to be at minimum the frequency of where you are in your consciousness and awareness, at minimum. So how can your stressed out uncles and aunties, or several things came up in my mind, but I'm not going to say them because I have a sometimes wicked sense of humor. So I'll digress. How many people in your world are you upholding energetically? They constantly picking and prodding or trying to sabotage you, or, you know, directly or indirectly trying to sabotage you. And you keep them close because you've been friends this long, or because of this, or because of that. And there's 1,000 different directions that just that upholding people energetically. You can pretend to be whatever you want to be until what you're pretending to be shows up. That particular statement of wisdom has played itself out in my life so many times. I've met so many people that were my heroes at one point in time. If you heard them in the early years when I would be, putting out content, you'd hear me say their names all the time because I support and promote the people that I learn from and that I draw from. And if you don't hear me saying their names anymore, then, that tells you what you need to know. Upholding people energetically, energy vampires. Look at how much energy the collective conscious in America puts into the political system and the election campaigns. They wouldn't be anything if you just completely withdrew your attention. I'd be impressed if nobody showed up because everybody participating is either directly or indirectly working for Satan. Authenticity and self-awareness and being a good listener and understanding how to be quiet and how to be still and starting to meditate on and embody the concept of everywhere I stand is holy ground. There's some wild shit happening in the world right now. Like really, really wild. So the mark on our door, which the Bible talks about, Easter Sunday, Passover, that whole concept, which is really a spiritual connotation, not about a physical marking, is based on our frequency, how we think, how we feel, how we eat, how we live, how we breathe. That's the simplest, those five concepts are the simplest sort of point of direction. Everybody's like, well, what should we do? What do we do? What's the solution? Start there. And really, if you start there and then hone in there and then elevate up the ladder in all of those, in terms of each of those aspects, and then hone in on authenticity and self-awareness. Self-awareness is a superpower. I'm in La La Land. I see how people who have money lack self-awareness. It's a major spiritual blind spot because they can't see themselves. So that whole sentiment is very off-putting. It's a turn off. It's unattractive to a person who's operating in a spiritual space because your money and what label you got on your shoes don't mean shit to me. I felt your aura when you walked into the room. I think I'm gonna go in the other direction. Being a good listener. Are you a good listener? I think reading books, because technology can't always be in play. Reading books and fine-tuning our listening skills are two great ways of strengthening the brain. Strengthening the brain, which in my opinion strengthens the signal of the mind, the little mind, which is me, individual me, with the big mind, the universal mind. Highly suggest doing both. And then being quiet and being still. This is the time where yin principles have to be embodied, have to be focused in on. Finding something that you love and taking time and being very intentional and very focused and not rushing and not being on the clock and not worrying about what people are going to are going to think, how they're going to respond, just operating from your pure creative base, your center, your core. I don't care if you build furniture, graphic design, poetry, writing, something, pruning, The garden in your backyard, pruning the garden in your neighbor's backyard if you don't have one. You know what I mean? However, that, and it might be somebody that actually would needs the love. That's why we do putting the love frequency out in the world. We need the love frequency magnified. I need you guys to commit yourself to magnifying your love frequency, your love for yourself, your love for life, your love for something greater than self, your love for me, damn it, and us, in this whole frequency, in this collective consciousness that we are creating in this cipher that will go out and expand into the world. So the to close that point out, people are sustaining on your energy, and it's giving them your or our, because it's the beings of light, not just on an individual level in our interpersonal relationship. The whole process of harnessing energy, the whole process of taking a celebrity or a superstar like a Beyonce and giving her full global access to the minds and the hearts of the world and putting her on the largest stages, and but they're harnessing her natural light, her natural talent for very evil and subversive purposes. That's a macrocosm example. A macrocosm example is Black America's energy and how hip hop culture and R&B culture and hood culture, ghetto culture, Black culture, not just hood, everything from uh the Harlem Renaissance to the cotton gin, which was created by a Black man, right? To bell hooks, to George Washington Carver, all these great minds, all these great beings that are weaved into the fabric of this country. America has been harnessing Black energy since white people got here. Not since we got here, because we've always been here, since white people got here. Those are the ones that didn't die from contact with them from infectious diseases. Giving your sacred energy, your sacred energy being used as a false sense of magnetism and alignment. That's a hell of a concept. I really, I can branch that off into a whole lot of different things. Women, who is it more true of than women? Black women in particular. Yeah, we're not allowing people to build false senses of influencers and social media brands and et cetera, et cetera. That's the whole concept of artificial intelligence. A false sense of magnetism and alignment. I shouldn't say that's not the concept of artificial intelligence. That is the let me say this right. That is the intention of the people who created artificial intelligence, for you to use their tools and their technology, whatever the modus operandi is, in order to cultivate a false sense of magnetism and alignment so that you don't seek a real sense of magnetism and alignment with the true source. And I'm going to leave you there. 58 minutes, 52 seconds. Okay, at least I stayed under an hour. I'll see you beautiful people very soon. Peace and love.